The snow came early that year, soft and endless, covering the small town of Bramble Creek like a white secret. It dulled the sound of hooves on the road and swallowed the color from everything it touched. Only the smoke from a few chimneys and the faint scent of pine reminded the world that life still moved beneath the hush. At the edge of the frozen market stood a young woman named Isadora Vale, though most called her ISI. Her hands, raw from cold, worked carefully over a basket of winter vegetables, roots and hardy greens grown in the stubborn soil behind her mother's cabin. She was 20, though the winters had already carved patience into her face, and her eyes held the quiet ache of someone who had waited too long for something she could not name. She sold what she could to passing travelers, though most barely looked at her. They preferred the louder stalls, the ones with bright ribbons and practiced smiles. SI's beauty was of a quieter sort, something the eye discovered slowly, like light deepening through mist. Still, she felt the weight of invisibility pressing against her chest. Each coin she earned went toward firewood, and each smile she gave felt borrowed, brittle at the edges. When the wind blew down from the hills, she thought of leaving Bramble Creek, of walking until the world forgot her name. But where would she go? The earth here knew her footsteps even when no one else did. On one such morning, while frost clung to the edges of the stalls and her breath rose like smoke, a rider appeared on the ridge. The town quieted as if listening. He came down slowly, his horse a dark shadow against the snow, his coat dusted white from the journey. When he dismounted, people made room without being asked. There was a stillness about him, a gravity that seemed to shape the air. His name was Noden Harrow, 30 years old, owner of half the grazing land in the valley, rich enough that no one spoke to him without reason. Some said he'd made his fortune driving cattle north. Others whispered of family money and a father who died too early. No one knew what truth he carried beneath that silence, but everyone sensed it was heavy. SI had heard of him, of course. Every girl in Bramble Creek had, though most imagined him only as a figure on horseback, a story told between chores. When he stopped before her stall, she nearly dropped her basket. His gaze lingered not on her face but on her vegetables, humble, imperfect, dusted with frost. "Cold season for trade," he said quietly, his voice more observation than conversation. "It is," she replied, unsure whether to look at him or the snow between them. "But the ground still gives what it can." He nodded, studying her as if her words had touched something he'd forgotten. Then he bought every last turnip and cabbage she had, paying double what they were worth. She thanked him, uncertain if gratitude or suspicion should come first. Before she could ask why, he mounted again and left, his figure fading into the white like a ghost who'd momentarily remembered how to be kind. That night ISI could not sleep. She sat by the fire with her mother, listening to the wind pressing against the walls. "Men like that," her mother warned, "don't see women like us. They see a moment, not a life." ISI said nothing. Yet somewhere inside, something small flickered, hope, foolish and persistent as a candle in a storm. Days passed. The snow thickened, muffling even the church bell. Then one evening, as the sun bled out behind the hills, Noden Harrow returned. He waited outside her stall until the others had gone. His face was unreadable, carved in restraint. "Miss Vale," he began, "I need to ask something that may sound strange." Her heart stuttered, though she kept her hands busy folding an empty sack. "Go on," she said. He exhaled slowly, his breath clouding between them. "I need a wife. Not forever, just for a week. A ceremony proper and witnessed. Afterward, you'll be free again with payment enough to start wherever you wish." The word struck her like cold water. "A wife," she repeated. "You mean pretend?" "Yes." His eyes held no mockery. "My father's will binds the ranch until I marry. The men who manage my estate grow restless. I need time to settle matters before the land is taken. I can think of no one in this town who'd agree, except perhaps someone who understands what it means to be judged unfairly." For a moment she could not breathe. The marketplace had emptied, leaving only the moan of the wind. She thought of her mother's warnings, of the gossip that would tear through the town like fire. Yet she also thought of her hunger for something larger than pity, the chance to be seen even if just for a little while as someone worth choosing. "Why me?" she asked. His answer came after a pause. "Because you look at the world as if it still might forgive you." She agreed before she understood why. Maybe it was madness or maybe loneliness had finally learned to speak. The ceremony took place 2 days later in the small church at the end of Main Street. Snow fell thick as feathers outside the windows. Reverend Caleb Morn read the vows in a voice that trembled more from age than belief. Si wore her mother's shawl, white once but now soft gray from years of wear. Nodin stood beside her, tall and composed, his gloved hand steady as he slipped a simple silver ring over her finger. No music played. No guests cheered. Yet for a heartbeat the silence felt holy. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, I looked up and saw something unguarded in Nodin's eyes. Loneliness, yes, but also relief, as if her presence had steadied some invisible storm within him. She wanted to ask what it meant, but he was already thanking the witnesses. His composure returned like a mask. They rode together that evening to his ranch beyond the river, a vast stretch of land blanketed in snow and shadow. The house loomed large, built of dark timber and silence. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and smoke. He showed her to a room near the back, its single window facing the frozen hills. "You'll be comfortable here," he said, setting down her small bag. "I'll see to supper." His politeness unsettled her. She had expected arrogance, perhaps command. Instead, he moved through the house like a man haunted by his own gentleness. That night they ate stew by lamplight. The fire cracked softly. He asked about her mother, her garden, the market, simple things that felt almost like care. But when she asked about his family, he went quiet, his gaze fixed on the flames. "Some stories," he murmured, "only make sense when told in silence." The days unfolded quietly. Snow buried the paths, trapping them together. Each morning, she helped with the horses, her laughter startling even herself when one nipped at her mitten. He would watch from the porch, pretending to check the rails, though she could feel his gaze like warmth through glass. Sometimes, when she caught him looking, he turned away too quickly, and she wondered what ghosts he saw behind her face. In the evenings they spoke little. She mended his gloves, cooked when he forgot to eat. He lit the lamps before dusk, always leaving one burning in the hall outside her room. The stillness between them deepened, not empty but alive with unspoken things. One night, as the wind howled, she found an old harmonica near the hearth and played a tune she remembered from childhood, a melody about lost travelers and the homes they never reached. When she finished, Nodin was standing by the doorway, his eyes bright with something raw. "That was my mother's song," he said quietly. "She used to play it when the storms came." "I didn't know," she whispered. He nodded once, as if afraid to trust the sound of her voice. Then he left the room and the door clicked shut softly behind him. That was the first night she dreamed of him not as a stranger but as someone who might have loved her if the world had been kinder. By the fourth day, whispers reached the ranch. A rider came with supplies and laughter. "Heard the cowboy married the vegetable girl?" The man sneered. "Guess even snow melts into mud if you wait long enough." Nodin's hand moved before thought, one swift punch that sent the man reeling into the snow. But even victory could not wash away the shame that clung after the dust settled. That evening, as I found him in the barn, shoulders hunched, breath heavy in the cold air. "You shouldn't have done that," she said softly. He looked up, his jaw tight. "They think I lowered myself." "And you?" she asked. "Do you think that too?" His silence answered for him. She felt something fracture quietly inside her. Later, alone in her room, she packed her shawl, meaning to leave before dawn. But the snow had grown wild again, thick and relentless. She sat by the window watching it fall, realizing that even escape would require mercy from the weather. When morning came, she found Nodin waiting by the fire. He held her shawl in his hands, folded carefully. "If you must go," he said, "wait until the storm clears." "I'm not sure I should stay," she replied. He stared at the flames. "My father's will was an excuse," he admitted after a long pause. "At first, I thought I needed someone to stand beside me in name only. But somewhere in these quiet days, I began to wish the lie was true." Her breath caught. She did not move toward him, nor away. Outside, the storm began to fade, the light shifting pale through the frosted windows. "Then why tell me now?" she asked. "Because I don't want you to believe you were bought," he said. "Not even for a week." The words settled between them, fragile and immense. She wanted to speak but found that silence said enough. In that quiet, something thawed, slowly, painfully, beautifully. By the seventh morning, the sun returned, turning the snow to gold. Nodin met her by the porch with a small wooden box. Inside lay a dried sprig of lavender, pressed and pale. "It grew near the house my mother loved," he said. "She used to say it meant peace that stays." As I looked at the gift, then at him. "What if I wish to stay too?" she asked. "Then you stay," he answered simply. "Not because I ask it but because you choose." For the first time she smiled without doubt. The valley stretched wide around them, clean and endless beneath the morning light. The snow that once felt heavy now shimmered with promise. Somewhere a bird called, a sound fragile enough to break the heart, and yet it didn't. Later, when she thought back on that winter, she would remember not the cold nor the whispers, but the stillness of that moment, the way love had arrived quietly wearing the face of mercy. And if you asked her what she learned, she would tell you this: love does not always come roaring like thunder. Sometimes it drifts in like snow, soft and patient, waiting for you to stop running and simply look up.